Welcome to Softcore History.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to Softcore History. We've got another hot episode for you. I am your host. I would say as always, but it rotates every week, so it's not as always. I am your host this week, though.
One out of every 3 weeks.
Yes, one out of every 3 weeks. Rob Fox. I am joined, as always, by Dan Regester.
Where's Jake?
Jake is not here today. Jake is a little bitch. So here's what Jake did to us. Jake got really actually upset at a lot of the stuff we said to him in last week's episode and quit the show.
Yeah, that actually happened.
We're actually, he got really, he was like, I kept it cool on, he was like, I kept it cool on camera, on mic or whatever, because I didn't want to be I didn't want to fuck up the show. But
he's not a diva.
Everything you said was fucked up to me. And
took it personal.
Yeah, he took a lot of it personally.
And he's actually starting his own network.
He is starting his own competing history podcast now. He's like, fuck you, I'm going to get bigger than you, faster than we even got big. He said, I think at one point, he was like, I am the fucking shit here, and you guys are the dog shit.
He really didn't like our Israel takes.
No,
that really pushed him over the edge.
You guys don't know this, but Jake, I was like, oh, Jake, I don't want to hear about Israel, ha, 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 last week. Jake, as soon as we got off air, he laid into Palestine.
He really did.
Laid into it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Well, he went on Birthright, so.
He did. He went on Birthright, and people don't know this, but you can do just a weekend with the IDF when you go on Birthright, just like a ride along with the IDF.
Smashing windows.
Yeah, we're kidding, actually.
Only like Palestinian-owned businesses.
Yeah, of course. Yes. No, we're kidding. Jake couldn't make it. We're recording on a Friday instead of a Monday.
I think it's like his birthday, right?
It's his birthday, and they also just closed on a house, so congratulations to the Goldmans. They're millionaires now because they own a house in Austin.
Pretty much on
a
Scrooge McDuck
yes.
pile of fortune when you buy a house in Austin, Texas.
Yes. And considering that he is gold man, he does have a pile of gold in his home. But instead of Jake, we have a very special guest. I'm actually fucking hyped for this guest because he's one of the funniest people I've been around and watched podcasts or listened to podcasts for or whatever. Jack Mandaville is here.
I cannot live up to your expectations if you're going to put that on me.
Oh, you sound like my wife.
Yeah.
All I want is an orgasm, and she's like, I refuse to live up.
You could have just told me I was going to be here, and I would have showed up, but now you expect me to be funny?
Yeah.
For you?
Dance.
I'm sorry.
You
I'm
monkey.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I got a lot of pent-up
Just drink
rage.
more of that drink. What is that even? Is that energy drink and vodka?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Jocko drink and vodka.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a Red Bull vodka. It's a Jocko vodka.
Yeah, no, it's
Jocko
Dakota's
vodka.
drink. Yeah.
Oh, is it Dakota Myers?
Yeah.
Specific
Wakes
drink?
me up right at 4 a.m.
Nice.
Yeah. I have a couple shots at night and a nice early wake up.
A real early riser.
Yeah.
For people who don't know Jack Mandaville, and I would guess a third to half of our audience is familiar with him from the Drinking Bros Network, but the other half who joined us from our days like at Total Frat and stuff like that probably doesn't know you as well. Jack has a show on the Drinking Bros Network called the Friday Night Jack Sesh, which is getting recorded right after this.
Yes, it is.
You're also a regular, or were a regular on Vet TV, a lot of like veteran shit, like sketches and shows and stuff like that.
Do a little acting.
Yeah, and he's just a funny fucking actor. And is comic the right word? Because you don't do stand-up, do you, or no?
Well, sometimes, yeah. I consider myself a writer. My main income is in writing, so.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Then,
I prefer to call myself a writer over anything
It's a lot more dignified than being like,
I'm a writer.
I come up to Austin once a week and do a freaking podcast where people talk shit about my body. Yeah. Like, do you have anything interesting to say? No, I just take my shirt off. I have nothing of substance to say whatsoever, but fatty's got a belly.
Pretty much. So that's Jack Mandaville. But Jack, you're also I didn't not assume this about you because you're a white man, and so I kind of have to assume you can't assume any white man doesn't like history.
Yeah, and I grew up in the suburbs, so especially suburban white men.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't know you were a history. I didn't assume you weren't a history buff because that is not a safe assumption to assume a white man isn't a history buff.
Right.
But I didn't realize.
You assume they've read some biographies about generals.
Yes. But I didn't realize how much of a history buff you were until I think we started talking about like Total War.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about the Total War games. And by the way, the other two people on this show are fucking weirdos, and they co-host a history podcast. None of them grew up playing Age of Empires or Total War or anything.
No.
They're a little more artistic than the group, the company that's sitting at this table right now. I just imagine those two handsome gentlemen when they were younger. They had to do a lot of hair flips and whatnot. Yeah.
Well, Jake for sure was a hair flipper.
Yeah.
He also twirled a sign at UF.
Yes, he was assigned. Yes. He was assigned.
I thought you were referring to the iconoblast guy.
No, not the iconoblast guys.
Okay.
No. I'm talking about Dan and then our other host who's in here, Jake.
Yes.
Never played Age of Coop and Joel were talking when I brought up Total War the other day. Again, they were like, "Oh fuck yeah, Total War, Age of Empires." Like they were into it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me that two people who like history wouldn't spend all their fucking time on a PC in 2001 playing Age of Empires 2 or Total War or some shit like that.
Well, we had a family computer. We only had so much
I had a
time
family
on
computer
the
too. I played games on it. I beat off in front of it at later times of night.
We were just talking about that earlier. I'm one of those older millennials, so I come from the scrambled era and the Sears catalog. Yeah. I can work with a lot.
Isn't it weird that like every family's house had a chair where at least two people, if there was a son and a father, beat off in regularly?
More than likely, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You ever catch your dad beating off?
I have not. No. My buddy did. Shout. I don't know if he's listening, but I know his little brother's listening, and he caught his dad looking at porn one time through the window.
Yeah, we had a glass slider that I came home a little early at around 9:45.
Uh-oh.
Caught Big Dan.
Waterman Dan
looking at some.
Looking or stroking?
Looking. He wasn't.
He didn't have dick in
hand. He was
hand.
doing the prep.
Honestly,
he was finding the right one.
I'm about to be a father, and in no world do I think, when I'm not being, this isn't like, oh, you're sick, you're a degenerate, like you shouldn't do it. It's just like, I don't want to get caught doing it. So in no world, if I knew other people were home or coming home or something, would I be beating off in the living room?
Dads don't have a lot of time.
Nope.
Yeah.
You got a bathroom, you can take a laptop
You got like
in there,
a
right?
7-minute window.
If you can't do, and now you were in the military as well, correct?
Yeah.
What branch were you in?
I was in the, hey, you're welcome for my service. I'm an American hero, and don't you forget that.
I actually hate you, you imperialist pig. You fucking pig.
That's okay, too. As an American, I fought for your right to feel that way. And you don't know how much fighting I did. I could have been in the worst battles ever, or I could have just been a line cook. You don't know. And I'm not going to tell you.
Jack was
I
actually...
want to let you think that I was, like, doing some Navy SEAL shit.
I'm pretending that you were literally, like, gnawing out terrorist throats in a house in Fallujah.
Yeah.
Like, you were out of ammo, and you, instead of, like, Dalton roadhousing, like, throat rip, you just bit his throat out.
Well, I have, I think the last they checked, I have about... 477 confirmed kills with kindness. So, yeah.
Yes.
Slayed a lot of hearts and minds while I was over there.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Well, what branch were you in?
I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay, so you were a Marine.
15 years and 70 pounds ago. Yeah.
Oh.
I would call myself an ex-Marine at this point. Yeah. Definitely not looking the part these days. Or for years now.
So you just, like, show up to Marine shit, and they're like, are you somebody's, like, husband?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, like, you served, huh? Yeah. Don't let the body fool you. Yeah. No, I love calling myself an ex-Marine because it pisses off other.
Oh yeah, because you're never an ex-Marine, right?
Right, but I am.
Right.
Because it just makes people angry and it's funny for me to watch grown men get bent out of shape about a simple
That's
term.
very similar to frat versus fraternity.
Do people get bent out of shape?
You don't
about
call it
that?
a frat. You wouldn't call your country a cunt.
Oh God, right.
Yep.
Why are you obsessing about this? Yeah, like why?
Well, because you're like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's really important. Yeah, things
And,
are
like,
important. Like
that like very small things seem to be the most important thing in the world.
I did a USO show a couple years ago where one of the people gave me their unit hat. And
like the battleship hat.
Yeah, right.
Like
they gave me their
it's
unit
like
hat.
The USS, whatever.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
And I got back to the States and I wore it around and I was getting attention for it. Evidently, it's a famous unit in the Air Force. So I've been just claiming to be in that unit for the last couple years now.
Can you steal valor if you were in the military?
Yes.
Yes, and I've been stealing the shit out of Red Horse valor of the United States Air Force. Yeah.
You know what you should do is, like, you were in the military, obviously you were a Marine, which is like about as hardcore as it gets aside from getting into like the real like specialized shit.
Yeah.
As far as like broad service goes, that's about as hardcore as it gets.
I enlisted about a month before 9/11, so I thought that I'd just go to Thailand and come, and that would be most of my service. But
it wasn't because you knew that 9/11 was going to happen?
No, I ended up having to do war things. Yeah, unfortunately. I thought it was just going to be Thailand and coming for 4 years. Yeah.
My grandfather actually served in Korea. All he did was play basketball.
Hey, you know what?
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you for your grandfather's service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He said he also fixed planes, too.
Yeah.
When he wasn't playing basketball.
He knew nothing about planes.
Yeah.
When he got there, they gave him a book about the specific plane and a flashlight, and they're like, here's everything you need to know.
That sounds
And so
right,
he just spent late night fixing planes, reading out of a fucking book. And, people would actually fly the planes that he would fix the day after.
Yeah.
And
He's responsible for a couple POWs, MIAs. You would
think so.
imagine.
Yeah. Probably McCain.
Yeah, there's
wrong
some,
war, but yes.
There's
Sure.
some unfortunate families who never knew what happened to their kin because of your grandfather, and that's okay. He was fixing planes. He was doing his part.
You still have to thank him for his service.
Yeah,
so.
you still got to thank him for his service. Bo Bergdahl, thank you for your service, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Everyone.
between basketball games, just fixing
Right.
a plane or two.
See, my grandpas were in some shit. They were in.
My grandfather should have played for the Dodgers, but he got fucking drafted. Okay.
Well, my grandpa was definitely not going to play for the Dodgers, but I got Battle of the Bulge on one side and just a.
That'd be the name of a gay nightclub. That'd be a great name. Battle of the Bulge.
That'd be Battle Over the Bulge.
Yeah, I mean that would be a great name though. If
it would be. Yeah, Battle of the Bulge
Yeah,
for sure.
Battle of the Bulge.
It would also be
Definitely
it would
a
also be
porn
a good name for a gay dance competition.
Battle of the Bulge. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, like a Chippendales type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it would really all like it'd be like a regular beauty pageant though, like where like the prettiest girl always wins.
Yeah.
It would just be like, okay, he might have a better dancer, but the biggest bulge is gonna win
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah. Why don't we have that? Like that should be the thing that separates everybody. Like just who
Your
has
bulge.
the biggest fucking package.
Although it would eventually come down to people would find a way to like, maybe you don't have necessarily it still need to be big, but like the biggest dick, but you're able to position it correctly. Right, so it looks bigger. Like you're able to get
Yeah, but then you get into
optimal.
Like, people might be stuffing.
Yeah,
I just duct tape zucchinis to my.
Yeah, the integrity of the game is going to be at question because people are just going to be stuffing like Jack here.
Yeah.
with zucchini.
Zucchini. All right, fair enough. But yeah, we have Jack on because he's lived through history, served through history.
Yeah, when I was doing my part for my country, being a hero and all
allowed
that.
to say
Yeah,
you.
and
Gotta
also
salute
just
you.
a big history buff.
Yeah.
So we're going a little. This is obviously this show is called Softcore History because we, kind of play it fast and loose with history and stuff like that. So
We really just want Dan Carlin to sue us.
yes, that's how we succeed. Is Dan Carlin sends us a C&D.
Yeah.
And then we get in an internet fight with Dan Carlin.
That's basically how you do it, is right?
Yes.
Who
All
can
for
be-
the clout.
It's not about content. It's about who can be the biggest rabble rouser.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We do that all the time. We actually should start more Twitter fights just to get more stuff, like to get more followers. Mm-hmm. But whatever. Anyway, so normally what we do is, we'll pick a topic and like a topic like, I don't know, like Timothy Dexter, like Dan likes to do biographies a lot of times, or like the New York doctors' riots like I did on my last show. And we'll run it down, we'll pick ridiculous things and just kind of go through it. However, I do like to switch it up from time to time. We all do. And this week is actually, even though I'm technically the host, it's Jack's topic. He suggested it, and I was like, that's too good to pass up. This week, we're just going to give our kind of cursory, thoughtless takes on overrated civilizations.
Mm-hmm. Dead cultures that we, for whatever reasons, worship and give way too much credit to.
Way too much, or even just attention to.
Yes. And I want to preface it with the fact that I don't hate these cultures. I'm intrigued by them myself, and I've studied them.
Right.
I like movies about them.
Yeah.
I just don't like the worship that other people give them.
Yes.
Because they don't deserve it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The importance or the relevance, and we'll get into. I actually, for a lot of these, not all of them, but for a lot of them, I'm like, what blows my mind is there's like a adjacent like peer civilization that's like better.
Yes. I always bring up like the fact that the Chinese have been Chinese for 5,000 years.
I think that reflects poorly on them.
Well, I'm saying they have gone through.
They couldn't be. They've had 5,000 years to be a world power, and now they're kind of getting
Or
there.
5,000 years to brand themselves as something.
They had a couple obstacles in the way. The British showing up with a bunch of opium kind of did a number on them.
Mongolians before that.
But the Chinese were great innovators. They were technologically advanced during certain periods. They've gone through numerous dynastic changes, numerous invasions by foreign occupiers, European, other Asian occupiers. They're
just kind of always there.
But they've always been Chinese. Nothing has broken their culture. Their culture is strong.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, though, when you talk about that, like those Chinese, you're really talking about the Han Chinese.
The Han Chinese, yeah.
On the eastern seaboard.
Yeah, the Han Chinese,
Like, it's the same way, like, when you're like, oh, Russia, you're really talking about, like, the Rus.
Right.
Like, you're talking about west of the Ural Mountains.
Yeah. You're not talking about those weirdos that border China.
Right. No, you're not. Like, you're fucking not. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, like, the cultures that are Chinese that I guess are kind of like worshipped or overblown, like ninjas.
Well, that's one of them that we're going to talk about.
But
let's start with the first one. And I think this is near and dear to you, a native Minnesotan, for a couple reasons. Yeah. A, because you're surrounded by the descendants of these people.
Yes. Yeah.
But you are not Nordic, right?
No.
Mandaville sounds very British.
And
you actually look like a Sherlock Holmes villain.
I have those.
Like a low-level villain. Like
I have those ugly Northern European genes.
First third of the book, like Robert Downey Jr. roughs you up for info.
You're in the
and you're like,
it's
over on that street over there.
What you doing, brother? You won't fight me right now? Yeah.
Like you walk in and Sherlock Holmes is like, oh, bugger.
Yeah. No, I am one of the few Minnesotans who's not Norwegian or Swedish.
So we're talking about Vikings. This is the first overrated civilization, number one, Vikings.
Okay, so just coming at one of my topics.
Fuck Vikings. Yeah, fuck Vikings.
I agree. I fuck the hero worship of the Viking culture.
Yes.
They were incredibly flawed during certain periods. Also, rapists to the core,
that's
murderers.
Why,
they would take babies and smash babies to death if they weren't Viking babies. Not exactly the kind of people
at
we
one
need to
point,
be.
They didn't have to do that. You just had to pay them.
When they first got to Greenland at one point, they found a bunch of Native Americans, I guess, like Native Western Hemispherians.
They would be Native Americans,
yeah. Sleeping under some canoes, and they were like, oh, shit, there's people here? What do we do? And their first instinct was, and they did, kill them.
Murder
the shit out of them.
Yeah, and not in the way that Columbus did it, which was very passive with the disease and everything like that. They went for traditional murder on that one.
Very stabby murder.
Yeah, and we could sit here and say a lot of great things about Vikings. They were excellent at trade, obviously excellent sailors.
Actually, women were quite... they had a
Very
lot of rights.
Yeah.
Women had a lot of rights.
They actually fought side by side.
Yeah. But
so with some of these civilizations, it's like, no, this civilization was dog shit. What I actually think is dog shit about the Vikings is our modern interpretation of them, and then the type of people who get really into that.
Yeah, because sometimes you get white supremacists out of it. Let's just jump out of the gate with that one. Yeah.
So honestly,
Which sucks.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's a huge red flag when one of your white friends starts getting super into Vikings.
Yeah. Then you got to start asking them other questions like, so what do you think about this modern topic, right? To make sure, is this because they're legitimately maybe into their heritage, or they're falling down some paths?
Yeah. It's like, wait, hold on, you're Belgian.
Yeah.
You're not. There's no Viking in you whatsoever. Like, why are you getting into Vikings now? And there's two reasons, typically. One is white supremacy, and that's actually the one I prefer, because then you can just write them off, right?
Yeah,
you can just get them out.
This guy's an asshole.
You can just get them out of your life.
Yeah.
The other one, it might eventually seg into white supremacy, but it starts out with a weird fitness and lifestyle thing, and then you just got to hear about this guy's Viking diet, I only eat cold water fish.
The Vikings were paleo as well.
Yeah, and he starts getting super into lifting. He's like, I gotta get jacked like a Viking, which is not what Vikings were like at all.
They wouldn't have been doing push-ups or any of that stuff. Yeah.
No.
Okay, Rob.
Yeah.
What are you talking about here?
How into Vikings are you?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I once claimed I'm the only person that did a Viking episode on this podcast so far with Ragnar.
Well, you're Irish, right?
Irish and
so you definitely have Scandinavian blood because they raped the fuck out of that.
Yeah,
island.
No, he does. I don't think he does, because I think most of the people they raped they took back with him. That's like the funny joke.
Well, that's where the red hair comes from.
Yeah, that's true. That's where one of the funniest jokes to me is like, man, people are always like, why are like Nordic people so fucking attractive? Like, why are Nordic women so attractive? And it's like, well, a lot of them. Who do you think they picked to immigrate?
Well,
there?
they also practiced eugenics until the 70s, the 1970s. Yeah, that might have something to do with it.
Your girlfriend's Swedish, right?
Yes, yeah. Looks like a Swedish woman. Yeah. Yeah.
Not a whole lot of variance
if
there.
you're an American man who's of average looks, go get yourself a Swede. They don't know how hot they are. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they have no idea how hot they are.
Swedish girl's like a 10 in America, but like a 6 in Sweden.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And even like, Alexander Skarsgård, the actor, he's sweet. He comes from Swedish acting royalty.
There's like
Right.
12 Skarsgårds.
There's a bunch of them, yeah.
Yeah, but some of them are weird looking, including his dad and his clown brother.
Yeah, but he is the
yeah.
way you
Bill?
imagine a Swedish male
Bill looks
looking.
fine.
Yeah.
You don't like Bill?
Pennywise, new Pennywise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Bill's a
Bill's a
handsome
good-looking
guy.
dude.
He's got a. He's
They
got
got the older brother
weird face.
Gustav.
Oh, the
Gustav's
one from
kind of
Vikings?
he's average looking.
Yeah.
They're
But
all
he's a-
actors except like one of them's a teacher.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened?
They're all great actors too.
What happened?
No, what happened was, I don't know. He just wanted the money without having to do anything. Like
Also,
you don't think
one
they
of
give
the
him money?
Skarsgårds is in Vikings.
Yeah,
the
that's what
TV
you're talking
show.
about.
Yeah.
That's the weird. That's one of the
Gustav,
weird looking
yeah.
ones.
Is that yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Loki.
But-
sorry.
Why do you hate the Vikings?
Well, I just don't like the blind hero worship.
Right.
And obviously, like the weird white supremacy thing is a relatively new offshoot of that.
It is, and it's so like it's such a weird thing. The white supremacy part of it is weird because it's like they didn't like build some incredibles. You would think a white supremacist would be into like Rome,
Or Celtic shit or something
right?
like that.
Like well,
yeah.
it's just or like even like medieval England, like
Yeah.
or like medieval. Or like the Holy Roman Empire, so things that like built like a giant civilization. Like the Vikings just like killed people and are like you're just like worshiping them the way you'd worship like an MMA fighter or something. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think at its core, white supremacy is rooted in a violent mindset.
Yeah,
About it.
and they're not the brightest either.
No. Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's I don't like the blind worship like with other civilizations we're gonna bring up. I don't like the overhype. I love learning about Viking history. It's fascinating, and I love learning about Nordic history. It's fascinating. I don't love it when we start assigning worship and nostalgia to a civilization that doesn't exist anymore for a reason.
Right.
Again, I bring up the Chinese is because they've gone through a bunch of shit, but they had a strong culture. They always remain Chinese no matter what. The Vikings are a dead civilization. They are dead culture. You can always make arguments like, oh, their spirit lives in the current Nordic population. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And we talked about this briefly in the Iconoblast podcast, but when Christianity made its way through Europe, Christianity became a vessel for feudal leaders of that time in France and Germany and Spain and modern-day Britain. They used Christianity as a way to conquer and colonize, where interestingly with the Scandinavians, with the Vikings, it had the opposite effect. It
Chilled them out.
It chilled them out. Yeah, they actually were like, we're just gonna focus on industry and yeah.
Right. Well, what's funny about the Vikings and shit like that is, well, I can't speak for Norway and Finland as much, but with Sweden, not even the most impressive part of their history. I think the like 30 years war era Sweden,
Yeah.
much more impressive. Sweden was
Yeah,
for a
but
minute.
Sweden was kind of like the bitch ass Vikings.
No, they were strong ass Viking. They're the bitch ass Scandinavians now, is what they're considered. Yeah.
Well, the Finnish are hard motherfuckers.
They are hard motherfuckers. The Norwegians are hard motherfuckers. The Danes are. The Swedes
the
have.
Danes?
Yeah, the Swedes have.
They're more mainland though. They're not up. They're not as like.
I mean,
up
they're still
there.
Scandinavian,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Also,
Bare-
Iceland.
barely.
Iceland's like top of the top.
The
now.
Swedes have, at least in the 20th century, everyone gives Switzerland credit. They always talk about the Swiss as, they were neutral, which they weren't, because when you're taking stolen Nazi gold and stolen art and everything like that, you're taking a stance. You're not as neutral as you claim to be when you're accepting other people's fucking stolen.
I feel like their only other option
free
was
market, baby.
to get rolled over.
That is okay. Touche. They had to play. I get it. But the Swedes during World War II actually did remain completely neutral.
It was like Sweden, Spain, and Switzerland.
Yeah.
So those were like the three countries.
But the Spanish were going through their own shit.
Yeah, but those were the three countries that somehow didn't get sucked into. Oh, and Portugal.
Yeah.
Didn't get sucked into.
A crazy European war.
Yeah.
And a world war. Yeah. And it was more of a world war than World War One. And what interesting, not to go off topic, about Sweden is we're talking about a country of 10 million people. That's the size of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and Austin combined, right? It's not that many people.
I want to say where I'm from, Missouri has like about 7 million people.
Right.
And I think Minnesota is about 10 to 12 million.
It's 5, actually.
Oh, it's 5,
It's
really?
about the size of Norway.
Okay.
Yeah, population-wise. But what's remarkable about Sweden is for such a small country population-wise, the amount of heavy-duty industry that comes out of that country, the amount of Olympic athletes that they've produced, they are disproportionately excelling at a higher level than the rest of the world.
Is that because they're Vikings?
Well, also because of the eugenics that they practiced until the 70s. Let's not as we say nice things about nice things about these countries. Let's also they practiced eugenics until the 70s. Even America was over that shit.
Right.
Yeah.
How were they practicing eugenics? Was it just like, oh, this baby doesn't look
they
too
were
hot to abort
sterilizing
it?
mentally handicapped people and stuff like that. Yeah. But to quote John Oliver, when you look at a picture of the Swedes, you can't argue with the results there. Yeah.
That's always say it's like when you see like white supremacists marching, it's always like the worst
It's
looking
the
people.
fattest, ugliest,
But
the
like,
worst looking white people on
It
earth.
would be hard to rebut. Well, harder to rebut. Obviously very rebuttable, but it would be harder to rebut if it was all Taylor Swifts and Tom Brady's marching down the street. You'd be like,
yeah, but people like that aren't insecure and don't need to fall into race identity
Right,
shit.
exactly, yeah, exactly.
If you're good looking, you don't need to be insecure about anything.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no good-looking guys that are just carrying their tiki torches.
No,
in the streets.
no. And if they're and like even if there's like one or two, like they're broken in another way.
Also, you're just mixing up your cultures there. If you're going pro-Viking and then you have tiki torches, that's
it's weird.
Right.
That's specific.
Yeah, it is really like to me like if I had a friend who's like, dude, do you like one of the last things I want to hear, along with like have you heard about the Church of Latter-day Saints and something like or like Scientology is like, dude, so honestly like the Vikings lifestyle was pretty. No, just get the fuck.
What about their lifestyle? Like
they were kind of like on a civilization level. They were like a hobo that needed to steal food to live.
Yeah,
because they have a very short growing season.
Yeah,
so they'd have to. They were raiding out of.
That's
necessity.
why they stayed in England so long, as it was rich soil and temperate enough to for agriculture.
Everyone was
summer.
like a foot shorter than they were, so it was easier to like.
That's the Vikings were actually shorter than the English.
And that's another thing. That's another misconception in history is that they were these large people. But they've recently, they've done a lot of.
They were shorter.
Look at their genetics lately. They were actually pretty compact people.
Well, it depends. Like Dan's talked about this, where Dan Holloway, he was saying that like it's not just one group of people. Vikings were a mix of like whoever they hit.
Yeah, because they brought people back essentially.
Again, the redhead gene it originated in Scandinavia. So when you see a bunch of redheaded
Irish
English, Scottish, and Irish
Spanish,
people,
a lot of and Italians, there's a ton of.
But that's what they went down there, and they went all the way into, if I'm not mistaken, they went all the way down into modern Ukraine.
They went to the Middle East.
They went into the Middle East.
Yeah. So
obviously, we know that they were about 400 years ahead of Columbus in hitting
America,
North America. Yeah.
So the coolest thing about the Vikings, when you're talking about them being in the Middle East or whatever, the one
and there's redheads in the Middle East that are Arab.
Yeah. The one cool part is the Viking, like the Eastern Roman Empire during
the Byzantines.
The Byzantines, Eastern Roman Empire during a point of it, they had like the emperors would have Vikings as their like personal guard, their Praetorian guard.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, because they were like, these are hard motherfuckers.
I did not
these are
know
psychos.
That. Yeah.
And they were like part Praetorian guard for Eastern Roman emperors, and they were part like special
Vikings
forces, I guess you could say.
They were just like you
were
can hire
mercs,
us
yeah.
for the right price.
Yeah.
That's it.
But again, there's a reason why their civilization died off. It wasn't strong enough for them to maintain.
They were the only reason they're famous is because their civilization
murder
was
part.
shitty in the first place, and they had to go murder people to get stuff.
Yeah.
So they got
Again, Christianity has caused a lot of not Christianity. Christianity hasn't caused suffering. People
just using
conquering in the name of Christianity has caused unnecessary suffering. Where again, it made the Vikings way better people.
Yeah. People don't focus on it enough. That'd be a good PR campaign for Christianity.
It's true. Vikings would actively go out and kill people because they had like the cross, and they would see like pictures of
But
Jesus.
once they embraced it, not only did they go all in, they're like, we're not going to be Vikings anymore. We're Scandinavians now.
Yeah.
And we're just going to make furniture that you have to build yourself, and we're going to make really good cars. Yeah.
That's the long game with the Vikings is with IKEA. Like they want us to just murder each other now.
Yeah.
And so you try to put together an piece of IKEA.
Right. You grab some meatballs on the way out.
And then you murder your wife or
murder your arteries with those meatballs. Yeah.
Also that, yes.
Yeah.
So
and then you probably murder yourself if you grew up in Minnesota and you have to watch Kirk Cousins sling the ball.
I got out as fast as
you're a Vikings fan?
Yeah. By default, yeah. I've actually lost track of professional. I've done some work. I've done a lot of work with the Washington team, as we call them now.
Yeah.
I've done some work with them, so I have.
I believe their new name will be the Naked Savages.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
And I have a professional loyalty to them because of I have a nostalgic loyalty to the Vikings. But as far as other Minnesota sports, like Twins, still a very diehard Twins fan.
Yeah, you were talking about the Twins a ton the other day.
Yeah, I'm still.
How do you feel about your T-Wolves getting bought by A-Rod?
You know what? Again, I'm a homer. T-Wolves have always sucked. I never put any stock in them as a team. But that's exciting. Minnesota doesn't have a lot of cool celebrities that like to invest anything there.
Yeah, Prince is dead, so.
Ever since Prince left, there's no cool factor in that state. He was carrying the curve on that, Yeah,
what's the food sitch like in Minnesota? Is it just like Juicy Lucy's? Is that the go-to?
You know about the Juicy Lucy?
We all know about the Juicy Lucy. We got Food Network,
bro. That's one of our claim to fames. Minnesota is not exactly a culinary
hot, though, when you
state.
bite in? Is the cheese like?
You have to do a small bite and then let it cool off, and then you can dive into it.
You can't just dive.
You can't dive. Do not dive into it.
In.
No, do a little nibble, open it up a little bit, let the cheese breathe, and then give it a minute. You're good. Yeah. Minnesota is not exactly a great culinary place, much like Scandinavia is not known for their food.
Right.
Minnesotans.
There's a lot of pickled fish.
Yeah. I grew up on a pretty bland diet. Now, compared to the 90s, there's a lot more restaurant options than there were back then. So
I think everyone, this is one thing I don't want to be like an old man about, but like kids today don't understand how like grim the food option situation was, even in the 90s.
Yeah,
which was like a boom decade for America.
A lot less options for suburban America back then. Yeah,
I think even in urban America.
True. Yeah, with the exception of like Manhattan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in Minneapolis, St. Paul, which are have always been sizable cities, there was not that much diversity in food up until pretty recently.
Well, and
we have a lot of good Vietnamese joints because we have large Hmong population out there, and
even like restaurants, you just used to be shittier.
Yeah,
like it used to be more frozen, less of a like diversity on the menu. I don't even mean like fucking ethnic diversity. I just mean like the menus.
No, you had 5. It was like an In-N-Out menu.
Right, yeah. But so that's it. That's it
for the Vikings. I feel like we got a hammer.
Yeah, we
do. Sorry, guys.
So here's the thing with the Vikings, though. I think our biggest complaint about the Vikings is less about them and more about how much people like them.
Yeah, I have nothing against studying and being intrigued by Viking culture.
Well, there are other cultures that we're going to talk about where it's like, no, those people like are shitty.
Yes. Well, I mean, which one do you want to dive into next?
I was going to go straight into the Aztecs.
Oh, the Aztecs.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, a civilization that did incredible things, considering that they did it all on their own. There was no trade with Asia or Europe that.
Well, there was just trade with other tribes.
With other tribes, but they were the master tribe. They were the alpha tribe of the entire hemisphere for a while. But again, where European and Asian cultures built off of each other because they had
Europe and Asia basically had way better population density.
Yes, but they also had the Silk Road. They had like means of trade where the Aztecs did all on their own. To their credit, they created incredible architecture, incredible agricultural system. We talked about it earlier. They had an impressive set of laws, even though it was compared to our Eurocentric understanding of law, it was a little backwards. But they had a system of law. They had.
Well, that's so. One funny thing I always see when I read about North American and South American civilizations is like a common trope will be like people will be like, why weren't they as advanced as us? And they were literally as advanced as European and Asian and whatever African civilizations were like large enough to be considered like an empire as opposed to just like a smaller, like the Songhai would be an African empire, but Africa is like a very hard continent to traverse, so empires were harder to just build.
And they were harder to conquer.
In Central Africa, yeah. But they were like, why weren't they? And they were advanced, like the Aztecs and everyone else, were advanced as any other civilization in literally every way except weaponry.
Yeah.
And I guess
they didn't have
seafaring.
The gunpowder thing. Yeah, that's huge.
They didn't have horses, boats, or guns.
Which in the guns, germs, and steel realm, those are important things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I guess they didn't have like really good blacksmith, just to forge shit.
No, they didn't have their metalworking wasn't like out of this world either.
Yeah, but they also didn't have access to some of the same stuff.
Right. And that's and that is like certainly like how could they have gunpowder?
Right.
Well, they did have portals though. That's what I learned.
Portals
through ancient aliens.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
the Egyptians and the Aztecs. Yep. Yes.
With their
pyramids, one of my favorite memes is like history memes is when people are like, why are there pyramids everywhere, man? Explain that. And people are just like, because it's the best fucking way to stack rocks.
Yeah. Also, slave labor. That was the thing back then. Speaking of slaves, the Aztecs knew how to take some slaves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one where
So these are actual pyramids that are built by slaves, though, because the
Egyptian pyramids were not built by slaves.
Oh, just the
Egyptian pyramids were built by paid laborers.
Paid laborers. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought they
skilled
used,
labor.
I thought they used.
Nope.
That's what
That's the great lie.
big history wants to.
Well, see now, as I'm about to go on all these rants, am I going to have any credibility if I'm
Buddy,
buying into big history
this is
like
soft.
that?
This is softcore.
Okay,
history.
all right.
Softcore. Yeah, you're
Be all
fine.
in my head about
You say whatever you want.
what I know at
No,
this
the
point.
Aztecs were confirmed slavers.
Oh yeah.
Confirmed.
Conquerors.
Yeah.
So wait, was this also where the Aztecs also the society where they would play games and they would sacrifice the winners because the losers weren't good enough?
Oh, so that is the debate. Like they would, people would get sacrificed, and there was like for the longest time they thought the people that lost would get sacrificed, but then people were like, well, hold on, wouldn't they want to send the best to the gods?
Yes.
But historians have no real.
They don't know.
They don't know. It's all speculation.
Yeah, if it's not in a hieroglyph, they don't fucking
Right.
know.
They just played basketball with the severed heads. I believe. Yeah.
But anyway, go on about the Aztecs.
No, it's again we can sit here and they deserve positives again because I have nothing against Aztec culture. I hate.
Yeah, our complaint is typically about how people view them, not
how
what
people,
they were.
The hero, the worship of it,
yeah.
as if they were this like pure, wonderful society that had no ills until the Europeans showed up. Like, no, they were fucked up in many ways.
Fucked up.
And if you were a neighboring smaller tribe, you didn't want to be neighbors with those motherfuckers.
No, that's so typically.
Also, really shitty at predicting the future.
Yeah, no, got that one wrong.
That was the Mayans. That was the Mayans.
Again,
who were the precursors
but it was,
to the Aztecs?
we talked about that earlier. That bullshit white American
there was
notion of like that the whole like native spirituality is on a different level. I'm like, no, it's not. They get shit wrong as much as Nostradamus did.
Yeah, I think like the typical thing is called like the noble savage trope. Right, like it's how
which is unfair to them. It dehumanizes them to
making someone an angel dehumanizes them as much as making them a devil.
Right, which unfortunately with the Western, not just the American native population, but natives in this hemisphere in general they were either getting completely shit on and abused, and then it seems like in the 20th century overnight it went into this weird kind of worship that came from boomers.
I would call it post World War II.
Yeah, it was boomers that really. It was that the peace and love generation that brought in this weird
like the
worship of the. But it didn't do them any service as human beings. All you did was they created the noble savage like they were a valiant foe. I'm like, no, they're still human beings. They exist today.
Like they were pieces of shit just like everyone else in
just
their
like
own way.
Everybody else. Yeah.
Like so the Aztecs. We talked about this I think on last week because I was previewing this week's episode where. What's funny about the Aztecs is people, not wrongly, complain about the colonizing North and South America and stuff like that. But here's the thing: like, if something is an empire, it's colonial, right?
Yeah.
You have to have colonies to be an empire.
Yeah.
And
you have to expand.
A lot of stupid people essentially kind of believe like, oh, it's not really a colony unless you like travel across an ocean or something.
No.
Like Germany in World War I and World War II, one of their main motivations for expanding was like, there's nothing left in Africa. Let's just take the shit next to us.
Yeah.
Right? Like we don't necessarily.
France has a good economy.
Yeah, like we don't. Okay, like they have India and islands and in the Pacific. Like that seems like a lot of work.
We'll get Vietnam out of it.
Yeah.
That's a headache we won't have to worry about.
Did you serve in Vietnam? Was that your?
I'm a veteran of Vietnam tourism. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful country.
Nice.
Yeah. No. And you know what? Going back to the white supremacy thing with the weird fucking Nordic shit.
Yeah.
There's a trend with fucking Aztec tattoos and shit, and
with like Mexicans,
with like
biker gangs,
Latinos.
Well, gangs. Not. I wouldn't say it's more a supremacy thing as much as it is a gang thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So it's like the type of thing where
which
like
is unfair if you're the average like American Chicano and you think an Aztec it's cool, just like if you're the average dude in America and you just you like Viking shit.
Yeah.
It sucks that other people are ruining that image for you. Yeah.
Right. Well, so back to my point is, you can't be an empire without conquering it, and it's like it was the Aztec empire. They were assholes to the people around them, so much so that the other tribes welcomed the Spanish. Because they were like, yeah, let's go murder these motherfuckers.
It's revenge time. These guys got gunpowder.
Now, granted.
So was it Cortez that went with the Aztecs, or was that mine?
No, Cortez was the Aztecs.
Okay.
So Cortez came in, and this is rough, but it's Softcore history, so fuck it.
Cortez is Herney.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Herney?
Yeah.
Burnt the boats.
He came in, burned the boats, and he essentially, they only had a couple hundred people. So what the main manpower was they got the other tribes on the outer reaches of the Aztec Empire who fucking hated the Aztecs. Yeah. Because, by the way, Aztecs, they did sacrifice and enslave, and they weren't sacrificing and enslaving other Aztecs. Yeah. Just the same way that there weren't a lot of slaves in Rome from Italy.
Yeah.
Right? Like it wasn't they were doing the logical thing.
Yeah.
Spaniard?
Yeah.
They were conquering.
Yeah. So these people, and now this you could also look at this and be like, oh, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, because those tribes eventually found that out the hard way, which is the Spanish weren't.
The Spanish were also conquerors.
Right. Yes. Yeah. They were also assholes, but the Aztec were such.
But guess what? The Spanish are still Spanish.
Right. The Aztec were such fucking assholes that they looked at these guys who were already relatively proven assholes too.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the Spanish were this virgin civilization that came to them. They didn't know anything about them. They could tell that they were assholes.
Yeah.
And they were still you know what, dude? You're a dick, but fuck Montezuma.
Yeah.
Let's go kill him.
Yeah.
And then eventually Spain was like, all right, we killed him. Now it's time to make you slaves too.
Now it's time to take the entire hemisphere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There's a reason why they don't exist anymore. They played their cards wrong. They pissed off all their neighbors. And that's another thing you'll find with a lot of the civilizations we're going to be talking about is they didn't play nice with others. That was one of their biggest downfalls is they didn't play nice with others.
No, they were, and stuff I've read about them in the past too, the Aztecs were aggressive tax collectors once you're under their rule.
Oh, Democrats.
Yeah, fucking libs. They were
I just feel like that's something you'd see in a Simpsons episode, like Grandpa would say, someone make some sort of reference like that, and you'd hear Grandpa's like, "That's the Democrats for you."
Yeah, Aztecs were huge libs. I mean, think about it. How are the Aztecs not libs, actually? First off, Mexican. Secondly, naked all the time.
Mexicans are usually conservative.
Yeah, Texas Mexican-American Chicanos are...
in reality, not on Twitter.
Yeah.
Not in everyone's warped view of what the parties are.
Exactly.
Right.
Every brown person is automatically a Democrat.
Yes, every brown person is a Democrat.
Yeah.
Plus, they're naked all the fucking time.
Just doing hippie shit.
Yeah, they got weird.
Human ritualistic sacrifice, such a liberal thing.
Don't want to work.
Yeah, don't want to work. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
They love their turquoise.
What is really the difference though between cutting out someone's heart on an altar in front of 10,000 people and abortion?
We had we have in the United States a thing called the Supreme Court, and I'm going to shut up now. Yeah.
But yeah, that one is, like you said, they did do impressive things. Like they had a huge city, for example, Tenochtitlan. I'm never going to pronounce that right.
Multiple cities, but
that was the
biggest, But they again. They did brilliant stuff with ahead of its time stuff with agriculture and
mathematically they're pretty good too.
Yeah,
I actually think that they weren't as good though as the Mayans or the civilization that I think deserves the valor that Aztec stands steal, which is the Incans.
Yes,
I think the Incans are far more interesting and impressive.
think as Americans we just don't.
We put everything together as one.
Yeah, we don't put as much.
The Incas, the Aztecs,
especially when you start going to South America, we don't. As Americans, we don't. We know a lot of European history, and we know a lot of East Asian history. We know a lot of North African history, but we don't put enough stock into our own hemisphere. There's a lot of great history in South America that, as North Americans, we don't know enough about.
Well, how much did they document before we got here? So
the Incans quite a bit. The Incans had I think a writing system, and it was actually like a crazy writing system where it was like with knots on a rope.
Really?
Yeah, it was weird. I think they also had hieroglyphs, but they would record stuff. I think
like a telegram, almost.
Yeah, like they would use. It was like knots on rope type of situation definitely for mathematics, and I think that was part of their just.
You know
writing
you know what made their empire as great and as big as it was, right?
The Incans?
Cocaine.
Yeah.
Cocaine. They had cocaine.
One of my favorite stories about Spanish slaves, I guess, if you can have a favorite Spanish slave story.
I want to hear some Spanish slave stories.
Is when the Spanish first conquered the Incans and stuff. I don't know if it was Pizarro or someone right after him, but they were like, yeah, we were obviously like working these motherfuckers to the bone because whatever, they're like monkey people that we just found and who gives a shit about them. And you know what's crazy is they were really good at it and did better work than we thought because they kept eating these leaves. Like they would march them all day and they would like stop on the side and just like grab leaves and be like, oh my fucking God. Yeah. And it was coca leaves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were coked up when they were slaves too, because that's the only way.
I'll tell you what. If I was going to be a slave, I'd want to be on cocaine.
Yeah,
cocaine makes everything better.
Well, it makes everything better, and then hopefully your heart explodes and you die.
Yeah,
right. That's pretty much what I'm hoping for at that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it makes work easier, and then you die, and you're good. Yeah, that's all you want. That's all you can want at that point.
Right. Right.
Or I guess the other option is you're like a slave in Pakistan and you just get to like walk into a poppy field and eat as much as you can.
Yeah, just go do that nice Wizard of Oz slumber. Yeah.
That's the only two places where being a slave is not as bad as being a slave everywhere else, I guess.
Well, for the Afghanis, I don't know if they've ever been a slave-holding people.
Well, they've never been enslaved people because you can't really conquer that.
That's the thing is they are unconquerable. You want to talk about the Vikings? Oh, this is what I'd love to say.
Okay, go.
The Vikings, the Aztecs, the fucking samurai, the Spartans, all these bullshit civilizations that we worship that are dead. Guess who's been around forever and they won't go away? The Afghanis.
Dug in like a fucking tick.
You can talk as much shit about them as you want, but all those other civilizations that you worship cease to exist because they're fucking losers. Losers die off. Afghanis are still fucking here, baby.
And
they beat off Alexander the Great. They beat off the British. They beat off the Soviets. They beat off the Ottomans. They beat off the Persians. They beat off the Indians. And they beat off the Americans, baby.
It is the most unholdable land.
Yeah, what's dead may never die. So
right, yeah. That is my favorite is Alexander the Great. Actually, they didn't even so much beat him off as he like put a toe in and was like, this place is terrible.
Fuck no.
Yeah. I'm going
not
past
dealing
it.
with the weather, not dealing with the locals, not dealing with it. Yeah,
it's like fuck that shit.
You can't talk shit about Afghanistan as a cult. You can, they're backwards in a lot of ways, what we consider as far as being civilized. Those motherfuckers are older, and they're going to be around long after the United States of America ceases to exist.
I'm going to cut them down just a little bit. They have the fucking like Lambeau Field in January of home field advantage.
Yes, exactly.
That is that is a huge part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
but the thing is, like, hey, when Alexander the Great went there, they, as far as I would imagine, they were a pagan religion, right?
Probably,
and then
I don't know what.
Religions never really impacted their longevity like it does with a lot of civilizations.
Right.
Again, they've been the biggest empires in history. Have tried to fucking dip their toe in there.
Oh, it's the equivalent. What's like a good college football equivalent? Like, it doesn't matter what team you are, you just don't want to fucking play them.
They're essentially an academy, right? They're the Naval or Army Academy where you're like, fuck, we got to play against the triple option again. Like,
right? Yeah.
They're
really not the
best
best team, but like they can fuck you up.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree. Afghanistan is an extremely. I mean, granted, they make their bones on a home field advantage, but still, man. But you are right about the religion thing. Like, they were just random. I assume for who knows what the fuck for a while. I have to assume.
I would imagine there's some
Zoroastrian Hindu, and then obviously they're fucking Islamic as shit now.
Yeah.
But they're still there. And honestly, if Islam went away tomorrow, what would change?
They're still going to be Afghani.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter.
They will still have heroin.
They still got their heroin.
Next up, this is a newly beloved civilization and a newly dead civilization.
Compared to the other ones, I think I know who you're going with here.
The Soviet Union.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah.
Well, they're not dead.
This is a lot of stands. Like, if you go on Reddit and you go to the communism thread, it's a sickle and a hammer.
It's the Soviet nostalgia is fucking bizarre. A lot of Americans are guilty of it.
A ton of Americans.
But a lot of Russians
really
a lot of Russians are guilty of it.
One of the funniest things about, and let's be clear from the get-go, unlike the Vikings or Aztecs, who were relatively ancient. I mean, Vikings were Middle Ages, Aztecs were Middle Ages, but still like ancient as opposed to the Soviets. Like, that was what you could reasonably call a time when ethics, you can't necessarily hold at today's ethics to those people.
No, absolutely no. Yeah, it's unfair. We can say how fucked up they were, but again,
there's a reasonable amount of ethics you can put on them, but you can't
and their lack of being able to keep up with the times is what did them in. So they paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
The Soviets ended in my lifetime.
Yes.
And for whatever reason now, they're back the same way like the 80s were back when I was in college or after college.
Putin's still there.
KGB
but I
agent
will
runs
say
them.
that the Russians have always been Russian. Even though they were considered Soviets, they were still Russian
This isn't
people.
about Russia, though.
This is about
the Soviet Union and
okay.
how people are weirdly... For whatever reason, like, I mean, you see people, like, there was a march here
Not
on
that big
May
of
Day.
a run either.
On May Day, they had a march in downtown Austin. We're holding Russian
So
flags.
it was Lenin. What was that, like 1918?
17. I mean,
17?
Lenin, the Soviets took over in 1718.
The Bolshevik Revolution was 1917.
Okay.
And then, you had
the Russian Civil War during and right after that.
And then the wall came down during Reagan.
Yes.
So that's their window.
The Soviet Union ended in 91 when Bush was president. The Berlin Wall came down under Reagan, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was 89 is when the Berlin Wall came down. So it would have been
when
Bush.
do you officially kill the Soviets then?
91 was when they officially...
Yeah,
that's when the Soviet Union broke up. Like,
it was,
they seized Gorbachev and they were over it. Yeah.
They were on life support, though.
Amount of people who are, and it really just
Afghanistan is what did them in.
Yeah. It bankrupted them.
Yeah.
and that's what Dan Holloway actually talks about on Dreamers all the time. He's like, Reagan was like a conservative, but he like jacked up taxes and everything. It's just because we were trying to outspend the Soviets.
Oh, the whole not to get on it. The Ronald Reagan thing is, again, talk about nostalgia that doesn't need to be there. I'm not saying Reagan was one of the worst presidents, but he doesn't deserve a fucking airport named after his name in D.C. of all places.
And
there's so many other people that came out of that area.
Maybe somewhere in California, but not.
We could call that fucking Abraham Lincoln Airport a lot more than it should be Ronald Reagan Airport.
Also, when people talk about how Biden has dementia or whatever now.
Ronald Reagan literally had dementia when he was in the fucking White House.
Yes. Reagan was fucking out of his mind by then.
He was fucking clear signs of dementia during his last years in the office.
Yeah. The only more incapacitated president than him was Wilson. Who was literally a stroke victim for the last. His wife was president for months.
Yeah.
Wait, who?
And he was a fucking racist.
Well, yeah.
Who died? Was it Hardin that died in like 20 days in office?
No, Hardin had 2 years.
Harrison.
It was Harrison.
William Henry Harrison. That's the 1800s.
Harding had 2 years, which was good. He was a piece of shit.
Woodrow Wilson was World War.
Okay, but
World War
Hardin
I
also had a little side piece, right? That was like 14.
Nan Britton.
Yes.
Was her name. And you know what's funny is she was the first.
Okay, but is it wrong to like? Is it really that creepy to have sex with an underage girl if she has a grandmother's name?
I think she. Well, back then that was a young person's
That's
name.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That was our grandmother's name. I don't know if she was underage. I know she was certainly young. Nan Britton had a child out of wedlock with, at the time, Senator Warren G. Harding. He became president.
Yeah.
He kept banging her while he was in office, and he knew the kid
Roaring
was
20s,
his.
baby. Come on.
Harding's wife knew the kid was his. Everyone knew the kid was his. She was the first person to write a tell-all book about the United States president. Yep. And everyone attacked her. They went after her. It became this propaganda fight. Well, I think it was 2015, after she had already passed, and then the daughter, Elizabeth, the daughter of Warren Harding and Ann Britton, had passed, I think, in 2013. They actually did DNA tests on all their descendants, and they finally confirmed, like, yep, that was Warren G. Harding's kid.
Yep. Fun.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, anyway. Wait, what were we talking about?
Anyways, fucking Russia.
One of the funniest things about the Soviets to me, so it's essentially like the Soviets getting adopted. It's like the inverse of white supremacists loving Vikings, right? It's like hardcore, like, people who think they're like super empathetic, like left wing, I'm here for the people stuff. Love the Soviets.
The edgelords of the world.
Right. Which the Soviets were, even in their best days, which if you were to gauge the Soviet Union's best days as far as human rights go, it would probably be the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
And it still was pretty abhorrent because Stalin set the bar so
low,
fucking
or
low,
high, whatever you want to
yeah.
I mean, they started their reign.
Such a tremendous piece of shit that Khrushchev, who took over afterwards, seemed like a pretty moderate guy, even though he was a Soviet to the core.
Right.
Yeah.
The Soviets also started their reign by publicly, or not publicly, but they executed the royal family
among other
on
people
their knees.
Which that family deserved a little. They got their comeuppance.
Rasputin did.
Well, the kids.
Well,
though.
Rasputin.
The little fucking.
The kids probably didn't deserve a
you got to
bullet.
end the bloodline. You don't want any of those motherfuckers showing back up, leading a revolution.
All you got to do for that kid is have him bump into a table and he's going to bleed out.
Oh, the boy, yeah. The girls probably didn't deserve it as much. So you could have, sent them to the States or something. They could have married a welder or some shit. But yeah, no, but like. Yeah, they completely fucking murdered the fuck out of the Romanovs. That was an order from Lenin himself.
The Romanovs is one thing because that at least
but
makes
talk about a family
sense.
that overextended their welcome.
Oh yeah, but yeah, get the fuck out. Well, I think the English King George, the King George we fought.
It was
I think
King
it was
George
the
V.
The fifth. Okay.
Yeah.
He was like,
that was
no, you can't come here.
No, both.
They were all related though.
This is my favorite part.
By the way, go follow Jack. What's your Instagram handle?
Jack Mandaville, JackMandaville. I don't know my name.
You posted this on your Instagram.
On my Instagram,
It was one of the funniest things. It was so good.
So King George V of Britain was first cousins with Nicholas II, the Emperor, the Tsar of Russia, and he was also first cousins with Nicholas's wife, the Tsarina Alexandra. That's how fucking tight-knit European royalty was.
And they're like, nah, we're good.
Yeah, no, you can't have it.
So, yeah, the Romanovs are like, hey, we've lost our country. We're family. Hey, fam, can I come stay in the in Britain? And people forget the British royal family was borderline on the chopping block
at that time. No, they had their own like
they were about
to
go out. Yeah, they were about to go out themselves.
Yeah.
So he was like, sorry, cuz. Gonna let you die. Got to keep my fam here on our side safe. So, yeah, he basically knowingly sent his cousins, who they were also cousins, the ones that were married. Anyways, they're all fucking inbred fucks.
Yeah. So that's fine. I mean, killing kids is never fine, but killing the Romanovs is understandable.
But what people Siberia
don't, what people don't
Siberia?
It was in Eastern.
What people don't understand is that the Russian Revolution was like 20 reign of terrors at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? You talk about the French Revolution where it's like
You had multiple groups vying for power.
but like constant executions of innocent people who were essentially just didn't have the right opinion.
Yeah.
Executed.
And
not as
Lenin was a man that had vengeance in his heart. I mean, his brother died at Romanov hands. He was on a rampage. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And what's funny to me when people kind of fall in love with the like communism and use the sickle and hammer what's funny to me about communism and socialism in general is that nobody's actually arguing for that. Like the idiots who were like sickle and hammer, they don't want communism, they just want more social safety. They want like Swedish shit. And
so it's all about messaging.
And
at
the
that
conservatives who were like, that's everything is communism. Nothing that they're talking about is communism.
Liberalism is communism.
Right.
Like, no, it's literally the opposite of communism, you dumb fuck.
Like, no one is actually talking about communism, which makes people, the conservatives who are like, everything is communism, fucking idiots. And it makes the ultra-liberal people, who I don't agree with, but who are really just asking for, like, hyper social safety nets, right? Like, to the nth degree.
Which we do in this country.
Right. But
not as good.
They're just really bad marketing.
What they're not advocating for is like, I mean, like the Soviet Union had like state-sanctioned restaurants. It was like restaurant A in your town, restaurant A, restaurant B.
Speak out against the state or anything like that. Like that's not the society you want to live in.
I actually think they do kind of advocate for that a little, if I'm being honest. But every side does
Why don't
that,
we just start waving the
just,
Swiss flags?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm neutral for everything. I do think but that's not just a far left thing. That's like everyone's like, don't talk. You shouldn't say this about me.
Well, I'm saying like the state, like the purge in Stalin's era. Anyone that ever rubbed that guy the wrong way in the slightest was sent away.
I mean, the way they portrayed it in the Death of Stalin.
I haven't seen. I need to watch that movie.
That was brilliant.
I need to watch that movie.
Literally, if you just didn't laugh at his joke, you were on the chopping block.
Yeah.
And we also forget that all the Soviet satellite states, with the exception of, I think, of like Belarus, like the majority of them were happy as fuck to get out of that shit. The Romanians did some French-level shit by murdering the fuck out of their dictator, their Soviet dictator.
Oh, not even just, so there's the Soviet Union, then there's the Iron Curtain, which extends beyond, because like Poland was never part of the Soviet Union, but was behind the Iron Curtain. But that's one of the funniest things to me about the sort of like left-wing people now who like stand the fucking sickle and hammer and wear that shit and everything. They constantly rail against imperialism.
Yeah, what the fuck do you think the Russians were doing invading Afghanistan?
Invading Afghanistan. Look at a map of the Soviet Union. Look at the map of the Soviet Union, and then look at the map of Russia.
Yeah.
Notice the difference in size.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Do you think Ukraine wanted to be in that shit?
The Polish didn't want to be in that. The Romanians didn't want to be in that shit.
Kazakhstan, all of these fucking people. And by the way, these same people are also anti-racist. Do you want to know who's pretty racist?
The Russians.
The fucking Russians!
They are supremely racist and homophobic.
Yes!
Yeah. Like, I think it's a poll of Russians' views on LGBTQ people. It's like 85% of the country is anti-LGBT.
Today.
Yeah.
Today.
In 2021.
Listen, we've talked about this. Russia, their entire history has been hard, okay? So, like, when a guy like Putin comes into office, it's a walk in the park.
But the thing is, the Russian people are, but the Russian people are very democratic. They've done a terrible job executing on it, but they've traditionally had revolutionary mindsets. They have a democratic mindset.
Do you put any stock, and this is like going to sound a bit like, I guess, eugenicist and like geneticist in a weird way, and I don't fully buy into it, but like, I do partially buy into stuff like, oh, Americans are such stubborn assholes who never like want to listen to power because
I think that's more cultural.
We're all descended from people for the most part.
That's more cultural.
Okay, and that's fair. But like, a lot of Americans are descended from people who are like, fuck this motherfucker, I'm leaving and I'm going to a whole new continent.
That's cultural, though.
Do you think there's
it's
any?
all cultural,
do you think there's any?
Like most countries, it's like. It's an old Daniel Tosh bit, but like there's no racism in China because it's just everyone's Chinese.
Everyone's Han,
Everyone's Han. No, there is racism in China. That's actually the thing. Well, the Han, the Uyghurs are in concentration camps right now.
Well, they're,
not Chinese.
That's a religious thing, right?
No, it's not. Not solely. It's as much ethnic as anything else.
Okay.
China's huge. Like, everything, when you think of a Chinese person, you think of basically the east coast of China.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, the east coast of China. You, like...
Excluding,
I think.
What, Manchuria? Or...
But yeah, I mean, on the border with like Mongolia, Russia, and everything, obviously there's this weird mix where you're going to get into areas where like there's Mongolians that are like white that also have like Asian eyes, blonde hair.
They bump
blue
up
eyes.
against Pakistan and India and shit, and that's where the problem is they get people that look more Pakistani and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's a lot of Russians on the eastern side that have historic. They look historically Asian. What we consider Asian.
Right.
There's a lot of Russians who are. They're Russian, but they look.
My point is, Rob, that like they deal with a lot less of like a mixture of like.
Of cultures for sure.
Yeah, it's a much less of a melting pot than.
Yeah, 100%. My other point is with the Russians. Are they somewhat like culturally inclined to just be like, well, it's another dictator.
I think, but we're seeing now with the protests that are going on over there, Russians have. I look at the Russians the same way I look at the Persian people, Iranians. Iranians I don't dislike any, but I don't dislike Russian people. I think that they're obviously subject to bad players representing them. Same thing with the Iranians. Those people have an extremely democratic. Yeah. Liberal mindset.
But, I mean, before, Argo, obviously, before Affleck got involved, they were like super Western.
Yes, but they
so was Afghanistan before
the average Iranian still clings on to that. Yeah. They're unfortunately in a brutal regime, but the people there they have a very free mindset, and and we've seen in recent years they've tried to break out of it. And they didn't get a lot of help. They got moral support from other countries, but no one came in there to help them. No. They did it on their own.
And no one's coming in to help. No one's coming in to help the Russians.
No.
And if you talk to somebody in the media, like if you're an Iranian and you reach out, like Bourdain went to Iran, interviewed a couple that was kind of standing in there. Like 2 weeks later, the couple was arrested, put in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. Yeah. But no, with the Soviets, that's all, or with the Russians, I should say, that's always like a thing to me where I'm like, if you're like perpetually historically used to something, and it really not forever, but like
you're conditioned. Sometimes you're conditioned.
I feel like as a culture, you get conditioned.
Especially rural people, I would imagine. Yeah. Russia, since the fall of the Soviet Union, certain people have come into wealth. They're not as bad off as they were during the Soviet Union. There's a lot more leeway to play around when you have
Yeah, but they've essentially become a third world country who relies heavily on a product or an export that is eventually going to go away.
What?
Oil.
Gas.
Yeah.
Gas and oil. Yeah. It always just cracks me up, just to go back to the Soviet stuff. And look, like workers' rights are great and everything like that.
That's why we have unions.
Right. That you don't need a full-on like government. Like people don't understand.
The
like
government doesn't need to be overseeing that.
In Soviet Russia, like you didn't open your own restaurant.
Yeah.
Like you needed the state to allow that and like you'd like restaurant A and then the taco restaurant and then hamburger restaurant and it just went on like that. Yeah. Like it wasn't like you could just be like, I'm doing my own fucking thing. But the funniest thing about Soviet stands, and again, like I don't want people to think I'm like shitting on leftists here. We just made fun of white supremacists and Vikings for like 30 minutes or whatever. Like that was an imperial empire and racist too.
Yeah.
Like
and they are everything that you claim to hate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every fucking thing. Like it'd be like flying a swastika, and you're just like, no, I just liked the efficiency.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like,
no, I mean, the economy was good under Hitler. I'm not saying I liked him, but I kind of liked him. That's basically what they're saying now. Yeah. And they forget that Stalin was also not kind to certain people of certain ethnicities.
He has a higher kill count.
Oh, higher kill count.
We said this, I think, on the last episode that Hitler had better rate stats, but
shorter period
if we want to use baseball terms, Hitler had better rate stats, but Stalin was better with counting stats.
Or if we went football, I referred to Stalin as Emmitt Smith. where he was just around a long time
Yeah.
and just piled stats up.
And Hitler was Barry Sanders?
Yes.
or-
Yeah. Hitler is
Yeah,
Barry
Hitler was
Sanders.
Sanders.
Hitler's highlight reel is way better than Emmitt Smith's.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Hitler had a mean juke move.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into your favorite.
Yeah, let's hammer through some of these real quick.
Samurai.
Some quick.
Oh, good. Again, massively interesting. I just got done watching the Netflix, the latest Samurai. Netflix has been putting out these great docs about certain major parts of history. They did one about the Ottomans taking over Constantinople. They did one about the fall of the Romanovs. But they did one recently about the samurai. Intriguing, wonderful. I love learning about the samurai. It's a highly intriguing culture. But at the end of the day, in reality, the samurai worship is bullshit.
Yes.
Because essentially these guys were mobsters. They were fucking thugs. They were brutal mobster, feudal thugs, especially in their last stand in the middle of the 19th century when Emperor Meiji was trying to
modernize the country.
Modernize
By the way,
and democratize.
Trying to modernize and democratize in part to not be colonized.
Also,
Exactly.
Can we talk about one of like the kind of what is revered as one of the greatest movies ever made, 47 Ronin, which is based off.
Thank God. I thought you were going to say The Last Samurai.
No.
Oh,
47
yeah,
Ronin.
again, leave it to Hollywood to make The Last Samurai a fucking white guy.
Tom Cruise.
To be fair, that one battle scene in the forest was dope.
The Last
It was,
Mohicans, a white guy. Yeah.
But so it's based on a true story about 47 Ronin who came to, I guess, the defense, or not defense, but like their leader went to essentially he went to a convention of samurai. He felt like he was disrespected, so he killed a guy. He was then ordered to, kind of, he was publicly executed, or he kind of like seppuku's himself. So his entire village of samurai, they no longer had any type of like status amongst other samurai. So they decided, you know what, fuck it, we're just gonna go get revenge for a guy.
So they just rampaged?
They rampaged and were proactive for a guy who actively went out and murdered somebody else in cold blood.
Right.
So it was a revenge for something like, dude was a murderer.
Right.
Just killed this guy for no reason, and then his whole group of samurai came out for revenge for a guy who probably shouldn't have murdered the other guy.
And it
Was in the wrong.
It
They defended a man who was
Right.
in the wrong.
And it should be noted, the samurai culture, so the samurai themselves, I guess, died out when you were talking about, but the samurai culture is what informed Imperial Japan when they were doing things like not signing the Geneva Convention,
Yeah.
shooting at medics,
Because they were mobsters who had a financial incentive to stay in power,
Right.
and not allow a major advancement in technology and for the voice of everyday Japanese
Oh, no,
people.
I mean during World War II. I'm sorry. I forgot to say that.
sorry,
During
yeah.
World War II, the samurai culture still stuck around, the sort of
Yeah.
like love of it, the sort of admiration of it.
It's still around to this
that's
day
what-
in Japan.
but-
That's their version of the weird
Viking-
Viking worship shit.
Yeah. No, but that
makes
is
a
what,
little bit more sense, though.
That the samurai
It
stuff
is theirs.
It is
yeah.
theirs.
The samurai, yeah, it makes way more sense. The samurai stuff is what helped the Japanese justify, like I said, not signing the Geneva Convention,
Murdering the fuck out of Chinese
Yeah,
people.
murdering the fuck
in
Chinese,
China.
murdering the fuck out of American
Koreans.
American
Yeah,
POWs.
American, yeah.
Kamikazes.
POWs. Yeah.
The kamikaze is samurai. Like that's
Yeah.
the same fucking thing. Like
Falling on your sword, essentially. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
literally.
But again, there's nothing romantic about that to me.
Nothing.
I'm like, that's the dumbest fucking shit
Well, dude,
on
I
earth.
mean, I'll be honest. Even a Viking would be like, "Do what?"
Yeah.
Like, no,
Die
I'm good.
on purpose? No, I'm supposed to live. That's the point of this.
I'm the murderer.
Yeah.
I'm the murderer.
Yeah, the murderer's supposed to come out alive.
Yeah, murderers murder,
Yeah.
not die.
I don't want to be a suicider. Yeah. No, again, like, there's so much intriguing shit about the rise of the samurai. Yes, and like you both were saying, it made not just a huge impact on developing Japanese culture, but it's still very relevant to Japanese culture to this day. But those motherfuckers needed to go.
Yeah, I mean the samurai reasons like Japanese.
Don't the Japanese have like one of the highest suicide rates too?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big fucking
I
time.
think, yeah, and I actually, okay, I'm not educated enough to comment on that. Yeah.
Okay.
They have one of the higher suicide rates. I don't know if that at this point it's. I mean it's you can't. I couldn't off the cuff discount samurai culture from
I would imagine it bleeds into it a little bit, but I think there's
to what degree
deeper issues there.
Yeah, I mean it's a very postmodern society.
Well,
and
yeah,
all
the samurai
kinds
were essentially they were like fucking well-educated sheriffs that just kind of walked around. Nobody else could have weapons.
But they were mobsters in my opinion.
Yes,
they weren't sheriffs.
They were the original.
they were your protection from them.
That's what mobsters
Right?
do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, they were the mobsters who actually had weapon control. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
gun control or whatever. Like you think that's big now, dude? The samurai took your sword. Like if you weren't a samurai, you couldn't have a weapon.
And by the way, it should be noted with the samurai as well. Not that I think samurai worshippers think this, but samurai. It's always funny to me when people talk about white supremacy, which is obviously horrible and terrible, whatever.
Then there's another version of white people, the weird, fat, neckbeard, anime guy.
Oh, well, what I was going to say was, dude, the samurai fucking
hung up on his wall.
Samurai people, like actual samurai like the Japanese were like, yes, we're the master race of Asia.
Absolutely.
Right? And the Han Chinese is the same way. They think they're
we were talking about what Hitler did to Europe, what the Japanese did to China and Korea.
Yep.
Was if you read the Rape of Nanking, is one of the. And I don't want to make comparison. It's unfair and it's not right. And I think it's because I grew up in a Eurocentric society where we learned about the evils of the Holocaust.
Buddy.
So I think I've been able to listen more about the Holocaust. Shit, you read about what the Japanese did in China is like I've had to like shut books. Like I can't.
Oh,
it's so disgusting.
I say this all the time. I've said this on this show multiple times. Because what's another funny thing now that a lot of like kind of like bleeding hearts do is they're like, we nuked Japan because we just because they were Asian and we're racist. And it's like
no, the fucking Germans fucking collapsed and they surrendered just on time because we would have used that technology on them
it on
too.
Berlin.
Look at what we did to Dresden.
Right.
Look at what we did to fucking Dresden. We showed no mercy to those fucking Gaul motherfuckers.
Also, we dropped one goddamn bomb, and they were still like, "Nah, we're okay.
We're gonna samurai this out. We're gonna samurai this out."
Here's the thing with that, and here's my thing with that is no one in America, even today, would have any problem with nuking Nazis, right? Like Nazi, like Hitler.
No, but again, Dresden. We did.
Oh yeah, no,
we didn't use a nuclear bomb, but we did more damage to Dresden than we did.
The two nukes weren't in the top 10, I think, deadliest bombings in World War II.
Yeah, Dresden was. You hate to feel sorry for Germans during World War II, but that was
pretty
arguably a fucking war crime that happened there. Yeah,
well, it's only a war crime if you lose.
Yeah,
but no,
Truman
the thing
what I was
say with the Japanese is. The reason we don't view the Imperial Japanese on the same level of the Germans is
we don't give a fuck about all the Chinese that they murdered and genocided.
It's not racism that we nuked the Japanese. It's racism that we don't think the Japanese deserved to get nuked.
Which, when you see, if you know what they did to the Chinese, they were operating at a fucking Nazi Germany level of genocide.
1 million fucking percent. They were every bit as evil, but they're just killing Chinese.
The only reason we probably have, when you look at, like, the only reason why we, other than the trade thing, why we have probably as good of relations with China as we do, is there is a historic factor where we did come to their aid when that was going on.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we were pretty cool with them pretty much up until the 90s. We were like on the same page because they hated the Russians as much as we did.
Yeah.
The Soviets, I should say.
They hated the British too.
Yeah, right. Hong Kong and all that shit.
A lot of the world has that in common.
Yeah. I have one other one. We're going to just go through it quickly. Overrated. Not so much civilization as area. Fuck the Levant.
Ooh.
Which includes Jews and Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. Are we talking about what's going on right now?
I'm talking about a little bit of everything, which is I am just tired of... I am tired of this area of the world getting so much attention from everyone.
Religion.
Yeah, it's religion. And here's what's crazy to me when people talk about, like, Israel deserves to be a state and Palestine deserves to be a state. I agree that both of them deserve equal free states and all that stuff. But let's not act like they've been that way for more than, like, 8 years ever in their history. Palestine, I'm talking, when I say Palestine, I don't mean like Gaza, I mean like Palestine. Like Palestine's the whole area, right?
Yeah.
Like Palestine's Israel, maybe the most colonized place in the history of Earth.
Yeah.
Every fucking empire you could possibly
I mean,
name.
speaking of the British, we're in this mess because of their bullshit.
It's
Post World War I, yeah, they
Palestine.
devied everything
Oh
up.
yeah, Palestine is like the opposite of Afghanistan, right? Like no one could conquer Afghanistan. Everyone conquered
conquer
Palestine.
But they're still Palestinians.
Yeah, well, and Israelis too. Like it says, like Israel, Palestine, the Levant. I guess you call it the Levant, essentially, right? Because that includes Syria.
Yes.
And stuff like
I
that.
think Iraq too, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe a part of it.
Okay.
Iraq is.
Jordan?
Yes, it includes Jordan.
Jordan is one of my favorite fucking
I've heard
countries
Jordan's
on earth.
rad.
I love that place. There's 2 countries. I've been to 25 countries, some of them like up to 3 times. There's 2 countries that I just think are phenomenal, and if I could live there, I would and be very comfortable. Jordan and Romania, I think, are the greatest fucking places.
Romania.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. My thing with
Jordanians are fucking rad.
Oh yeah,
it's
I like
a rad
I've
country.
met several Jordanians and I enjoy
Jordan's
them
a
quite
rad
bit.
place, man. And they border all that insanity, and they're like the most chillest motherfuckers in the region.
They don't do anything. They're just like, we got a king, we're good, it's fine.
We're good. We're just gonna protect our borders.
Yeah.
They have a lot of Palestinians there, but yeah.
Dude, it's wild to me. It's to the point where I'm like, you know what? Fuck Israel, fuck Palestine. Just give them to Jordan. And let them just live freely under Jordan.
Jordan would actually do a good job of divvying out what needs to be done.
Here's the thing. I was going through this the other day in my head. Here's the history of Israel and the Palestinians. And really, Israel is Palestine. That's another word for it, like I said. Israel is Palestine.
But they just have their own ethnic identity, yeah.
Here's the history of that. Owned by the ancient Egyptians, Old and New Kingdom at different times. Owned by the
and the ancient Egyptians who were owned by the aliens.
Yes, we know.
Of course.
Then I want to say Assyrians conquered Canaan, but not Israel. Then the Babylonians conquered
Who
all.
could forget the Babylonians?
Yeah, Babylonians
yeah.
conquered all that
Old
shit.
Old Nebuchadnezzar.
Oh yeah. Then the fucking Israelites and Palestinians and whomever else was so happy to just not be under Palestinian rule that when the Persians conquered Babylon and Palestine, they were like, Persians are rad. There's a whole fucking part of the Bible that is celebrating King Cyrus.
Yeah,
Where they're like,
that gets kind of. We're gonna skip over the Spartans now.
And then came the Greeks.
Yeah.
well, then came Alexander. They fucking conquered all that shit. They took it, and then
But the Persians, back to my point, Persians were not as bad as people think.
No, Persians were fine.
Persians were super kind
They were
of like
multi-ethnic,
understanding, yeah.
and they were smart. They were smart governors. What they would do, they just let the people run their own shit.
Yeah.
It's not what was portrayed in 300.
No,
No.
they didn't. They didn't make you convert.
And that was Xerxes, right? Yeah.
By the way,
Son of Darius.
Yes. My favorite review I've ever heard of 300 was some guy was like, yeah, so a bunch of like alpha males like murder a gay pride parade.
And that's us talking about the Spartans.
Yeah, that's the Spartans.
Spartans.
But then it goes, then the Alexander shit gets fractured and and then the Ptolemaic Egyptians rule it. Yeah. And then it just goes, and then then the Roman Empire takes it, then it's Eastern Roman Empire, then it's Islamic Caliphate after Islamic Caliphate.
Which they actually had a pretty long run.
Yeah, they did. Well, it was like different caliphates, just, Islamic empires. Then the Ottomans came in, and they fucking owned it. And
They had a good run, too.
Yeah, and then the fucking British took it for like 40 years between World War I and World War II.
And fucked it to all.
And then they made Israel. Like, I mean, literally, just give it
And then Israel's just basically being funded by us
Yeah,
and the British.
and
just
it's like
give it
a
to
make
Jordan.
good for the Holocaust.
Yeah.
It's
like, let Jordan run it.
Yeah.
Like, really.
King Abdullah II of Jordan, there's nobody that understands not just his country and Arab people, but the region like he does.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why he warned and told the United States not to invade Iraq wasn't because he was trying to protect Saddam Hussein. He thought Saddam was a dick. He didn't get along with Saddam. The reason why he warned the United States not to invade Iraq was not to protect Saddam. It was to protect us because he knew that there was nothing that we could do.
There's no win.
Yeah, there's no win there.
I mean, you can beat them in the field, but you're not winning long term.
No, there's just no saving it.
But that's the thing with that, which everyone's like, everyone needs an independent state. That they've been independent for 0 fucking
Well,
seconds.
let's give it to the fucking Kurds and the Hmong while we're at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you know who I think
Let's go tell fucking Laos or Vietnam or parts of China that they have to give up their own property so the Hmong can have their own state. Or let's go to fucking Iraq or Turkey and tell them they have to give up their own land so the fucking Kurds can have a state.
Right. Yes. And by the way, so I said with the Aztecs, I was like, dude, the Incans were way cooler. It pisses me off that everyone talks about like Israel and shit like that. The Phoenicians were the coolest people of that area. Okay, it's all about the Phoenicians. I'm a big Phoenician fan.
I'm a Phoenix myself. I went to the University of Phoenix. Very proud alum.
Look at you.
Yeah.
With your GI Bill.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't use it anymore because it is a for-profit college. It's a scam. And anyways.
Womp womp. But yeah, that's our. Do you have any other just where you want to just say fuck them real quick?
Well, we got to do the Spartans.
Yeah.
And out of all the other civilizations where I always had kind words to say, and I can say some kind words about the Spartans, but the Spartans are, out of everybody we talked about, the most overrated motherfuckers of them all.
It is crazy to me, and the only reason is because it's the same reason with the Vikings. We have white guys trying to be aggro as fuck, and it's fucking lame and stupid. Athens, 10 times more interesting.
Yeah,
than
and
Sparta.
they came out on top in the long run. Their vision of Greek culture is what became modern.
I'd rather hear more about Thebes than I would about.
The reason why the Spartans became a dead, extinct non-entity was because they didn't play well with others.
No,
they
were
didn't
dicks.
adapt well. The brief period of time they actually had any legitimate power in Greek culture didn't last long, and it's because they were way too militaristic, and they weren't democratic either. They weren't the democratic portion of Greece.
No.
We attribute democracy to the Greeks. The Spartans were anti-democracy.
But Sparta is also a great historical point in realizing that, you can be as hard as you want to be. You can be the biggest, baddest. You can have a bunch of jacked, cool guys walking around. If you don't have the tech, if you don't have not even volume. If you don't have the military tech,
they didn't
because
adapt.
guess what? How they got fucked? No Navy. Shitty Navy.
Yeah.
Right? The same way now. People are like Ted Cruz tweeted the other day, well, Russia's military video was way cooler
They
than
have
ours.
one aircraft carrier that is it's fueled by fucking coal. And he's a United States senator is tweeting Russian propaganda and then shitting on our American military, which there is no country in the world that does as good of a job of having its citizens in the military be a direct replica of the civilian population. The United States military, compared to any other country in the world, I will die by this statement, is the best military to civilian representation of its society, by far. So they showed a young lady who signed and raised her right hand to go serve her country. There was a army commercial about a young lady who grew up with two moms.
Lesbian moms, yeah.
And then Ted Cruz is acting like the Russians are so much harder because the Russians don't even acknowledge that lesbians exist.
Right. And by the way, what's going to happen within the next 10 years is Russia will still have a bunch of hardcore strong guys, and if we went to war with them, all those big muscly white men who are fucking cool and
They're
hard.
all fucking diabetics and alcoholics over there.
They would get those big.
And not in the American way of diabetes where we earned it. It's genetic diabetes. They're type 1 losers.
Those big, strong, tough white men would all be murdered by robots flown by gay little Xbox twinks.
Some fucking nerdy some the most beta-looking nerd on earth, Buster Bluth motherfucker. Yeah, is gonna just wipe out those alpha bros.
Yes, and he can go home and he might suck 8 dicks that night, and he will have murdered every Viking-looking Russian.
I don't need what looks badass. I need what's up here. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want, even as a taxpayer and as an ex-Marine, as someone who has no connection to the military, as a taxpayer, I want that infantry squad leader, that 25-year-old sergeant or whatever, to be a thinker.
Right.
Yeah.
Not some guy who's let's fucking kill him. Rah, 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 rah.
Yeah, I don't want him to fucking commit war crimes or anything. I want it to be a person with a level head.
Man.
There's no better way to end, I don't think.
I think that's a good ending. Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point.
I do too.
Guys, for Dan Regester and our wonderful guest, Jack Mandaville, I am Rob Fox. Check out the Jack Sesh on the Drinking Bros Podcast Network. It is so fucking funny. Yeah. It's on Patreon. It's
behind a paywall.
And follow Jack Mandaville on Instagram, especially at Jack Mandaville. We'll have his spelling in the in the
It's
Description,
Mandaville with an A. Don't put that E in there. It's
No.
not Mandaville, Jamaica, not Mandaville, Louisiana. It's Mandaville, the American version. I'm an American.
Goddamn right. I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you guys, and
You just got soft served.